Hey everyone! So, it's been about a day or two since the release of Kazuha, and I've been playing him pretty much non-stop, and man is he good. I can't remember the last time I've had this much fun playing the character. His skills are amazing, the movement you can get with this character is really great, and so today I want to go over what I believe to be the best Kazuha build based on my experience of the last few days. Firstly, let's start with his weapons. So, by far the best weapon for Kaedehara Kazuha, DPS or support, is the Freedom Sworn Sword. Like most weapons released with the character, it is specifically tailored towards Kazuha, offering a good amount of elemental mastery, which is Kazuha's main stat that we want to go for, as well as a passive that we can easily proc with Kazuha's abilities. Now then, next up we have the Primordial Jade Cutter, which does really well as it has a good amount of attack with a nice increase in crit rate. Finally, for 5 stars we also have the Skyward Blade, a very cool looking blade that has a nice passive that can help out quite a bit. However, the main stat of energy recharge I find isn't that useful, as I never find myself running out of energy. So we reach the 4 stars now, and the best 4 star, and the one I've been using the most, is the Iron Sting. It offers elemental mastery, as well as a very good passive that Kazuha will be able to trigger. This is by far the best in slot for free to play players, and so if you have any spare sword hilts, then definitely craft this, as this is amazing. Next up, let's take a look at his artifacts. Now the best set is the 4-piece Viridescent Venera. This offers all that we need, a great increase to swirl damage, as well as decreasing the elemental resistance of the enemy, which works perfectly with our elemental burst. Now, if you don't have this, or you don't have good substat rolls on it, then you could also run a mix of 2 pieces Viridescent Venera as well as the 2-piece Gladiator's Finale, but definitely change over once you have the 4-piece set. But yeah, so for the extra artifacts and the main stats you want, so for support you want to stack Elemental Mastery on the Sands, Goblet and Circlet. This will allow your main DPS to do huge amounts of damage, as well as Kazuha with his swirl damage. Now for DPS there are 2 options, and that is dependent on whether or not you are a whale and manage to get him to C6, as if you did manage to get him to C6, then due to how that works and the damage bonus you get from stacking Elemental Mastery, then the artifacts you want are going to be same as support, i.e. stacking Elemental Mastery on all the artifacts. However, if you don't have C6, then you're going to want to run a attack Sands and a Nemo damage Goblet and a crit rate crit damage Circlet, depending on which one you need. Now onto his substats. So for Kazuha's substats, if you're a support then focus on Elemental Mastery. You could also grab some energy recharge if you are having energy problems, although I don't really find myself having those, as he just seems to generate a ton of energy particles. And then for main DPS Kazuha, you're going to want to focus on crit rate, crit damage, as well as Elemental Mastery and attack percentage. So that is his artifacts. Now let's go on to his constellations. So I mentioned his C6, but he has a few other good constellations. The best are is C1 and C2, as well of course C6, if you are planning on building him as a DPS. So his C1 reduces the elemental skill cooldown by 10%, as well as resend it every time you use his burst, and man is this good, as the more times you use it the higher your DPS will be, and so on and so forth. C2 gives you a huge amount of Elemental Mastery, 200 to be exact, every time you use your burst, which is crazy, and is somewhat similar to Diona's C6, and that's only Kazuha's second constellation. Then we have his C6. Now his C6 is where he really becomes a great DPS, although definitely not needed. It is a great help, at least for main DPS Kazuhas. If you're playing him as a support, you probably don't really need a C6, and I would stop at C2 if you have the choice. But if you have the cash and want to try him out as a DPS, then definitely get C6, as it is by far the best constellation. Next are his talents, and for this we're going to focus on his elemental skill, as this is the skill you'll be using the most, especially if you're at C1, getting that reset and just spamming it, and then his burst and his attacks. So now we move on to teams. So firstly, Anemo is a very flexible element and can be put in most teams due to how Anemo works with other elements. So firstly, let's split this into DPS teams and support teams. So for support teams, he can be put in any of the meta comps right now, and for example I've been running him on my Diluc team as the 4th member, and he acts as a sort of damage amplifier, allowing your main DPS, the Luke in this case, to deal a lot more damage. He's also really good at destroying shields with his burst and skill, as if you can have the enemy stay in the burst, it will shred through that shield. And if you manage to keep up these swirl reactions with your main element, so Pyro in this instance, then you're gonna see the true power of Kazuha and destroy those enemies. Now for DPS teams, it's somewhat similar in that you're gonna want to trigger as many reactions as you can, especially if you're C6, as you'll have a ton of elemental mastery. But a nice team that I've been running is a Vaporize focused team, Kazuha, Bennett, Xinling and Xinshu. So with this, you're gonna want to try and get the enemies grouped together to make use of Xinling's burst as well as Kazuha's and proc as many reactions as possible. Bennett will act as your support, providing you with a good heal and also a good amount of energy if you need that. Now honestly, I find that you can put pretty much anyone in a Kazuha team and do decently well due to how it works, so definitely try out more comps than just this one and let me know how that goes. But anyways, so that is my Kazuha build. And so, if you're looking for a great support who can buff your main DPS quite a bit, or a solid main DPS, and also if you're just looking for a fun character to play, because I don't know what it is about Kazuha, but he has been such a joy to play and test the last couple of days, and I am definitely glad I managed to pull him. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed and see you next time.